Hi guys. Um, it's always a little weird to record a video after not doing it for a month, so pardon me and my weird, oh, the fan is turning off or turning itself off. Anyways, pardon me for my glitches. It's also Mercury retrograde. I almost wore my Mercury retrograde sweatshirt, but it's really warm today, so here we are. We're going to talk about the Scorpio lunar eclipse coming up. Um, we're right in the middle of eclipses. We had that Aries new moon eclipse that happened, you know, when I think about that, like the eclipses are doing something weird to me this time in my life, where normally eclipse season takes things away from me and I can like clearly see how things are being taken away from me. This time, this eclipse season didn't, everything was already taken away from me. Like before the eclipse season came up, everything that needed to change was already in the process of changing. Like it started happening early. And I don't know if that's the same case for everybody. I don't know if that was happening with everybody else, but this one coming up, this is a new beginning for Henry and I. This is a huge new beginning. For those of you that have been watching the last couple of months, February was a really rough time. And then the couple of months after that were pretty rough. We had to leave our old home quickly because the landlord started harassing us and it became a very unsafe environment. Not really going to get into that, but like we're going to talk about the state of the world here in a minute, and that has something to do with it. We're not going to talk about that right now, but we'll get to it. But we found a place. We will be moving into our new place on June 8th, which is amazing. Like, oh my gosh, it's been so stressful. And then I had migraines for a month. And so anyways, I'm glad I'm back. But this eclipse season has been very eye-opening in a lot of ways, where we recognized what it is that we truly want to have. Like Henry and I, the funny thing is he and I have the same rising sign. We're both Libra rising. So the transits are really happening to us simultaneously in the same way a lot of times. I mean, of course, his planets are different than my planets in our natal charts, but because of that rising sign, the transiting planets are in the same houses at the same exact time. So we have this great new beginning that's coming, and that's happening with a lot of people that I've noticed through this eclipse season, where they lost everything or recognized what it was that they really had to let go of prior to that eclipse, that new moon eclipse in Aries at that 29th degree, like ending. Like it was so you could not you couldn't call it anything else. Ending. Things were ending. And so now I'm watching how the new lives, like we grew this foundation between that ending time, and now we're in between eclipses. And this is a really magical time in between eclipses. First of all, please don't manifest during eclipses. Please do not manifest during eclipses. Are manifesting for you. Eclipses are a time for you to surrender to the cosmic energies that are happening around us. Whether you even believe in astrology or not, an eclipse is something that can be seen by the naked eye. Depending on where you are, of course, when the eclipse is happening, but somebody is seeing the eclipse somewhere happening. So, you know, even our ancestors, indigenous people, my ancestors, my indigenous ancestors, wouldn't look at the eclipse, wouldn't have celebrations under the eclipse season. You know, during this time, especially in between eclipses, we really want to let go and let God. I know that's a really cliche saying, but you know, the more, you know, I'm always stressing, like, don't force. There are certain things in our lives that we do not want to force happening. There's a lot of things in our lives that we cannot even control. I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday about change. because we had like Mars is sextile Uranus yesterday and today. And, Mars being in Cancer, Uranus being in Taurus, there's this massive need and desire to find safety, to find something that makes us feel like we're in control in some way, shape, or form. And, having that conversation yesterday with someone about how, the only thing that we can depend on in life is that things are going to change. Things are always going to evolve. May not be overnight. It may be like a series of events that happen, but through, that's why hindsight is 2020, right? 2020 vision, and we see more clearly once the change happens, once the dust settles, once the air clears. We see the beauty of that expansion and that change. One of the biggest reasons why people fear change is not because of what can happen to you. Yes, a lot of people fear change because of what can happen to them, but a lot of people fear change because of the people around them and how it affects them. And like your children, your spouse, your friends, stuff like that. And because eclipse season is a time of change, let's talk about that. I know, like I know that I'm a person that like my entire life is just it's a constant upheaval. There's always change happening. If you've been watching me for the last 6 years, almost 6 years, basically, it'll be 6 years in September. If you've been watching me that long, you have seen how my life has changed. It has evolved in so many ways. And you've also probably watched how my demeanor has changed along with it. And friends, that's the key to change in your life, becoming adaptable. And if we stifle ourselves from evolving and becoming adaptable ourselves, and then how are we to guide our children, the tiny babies that we were charged with guiding through this earthly realm? How are we to show them how to adapt to change the best? Like, I used to think when my older two boys, who are now 20, almost 22 and almost 20, which is insane in itself. Thank you very much. They'll be 22 and 20 in June. So it's coming up pretty fast. But when they were babies, they were 5 and 7, maybe. We had to adapt because the car broke down and we had to walk to the grocery store to get groceries, and we had to walk back home. And so these little babies are carrying these like these heavy plastic bags down the sidewalk. And I was having a conversation with them, and I felt so guilty as a mother at that time because all these changes that were happening. I divorced their father, I had made certain choices in my life, and now I was a single mom, and I made choices for myself, and now I was a single mom, and these two little boys are just so strong and adapting to this. And I had this conversation with them, it was a few months ago, I think. And I was like, man, I just feel so guilty for making you guys, like, you had to carry those bags home from the grocery store, and they thought it was an adventure. They loved it. They had so much fun. They really enjoyed, like, my life has been so entertaining and interesting to my children because of the way that I've had to learn how to adapt. So to me, because I was looking at everything as like it was so hard, like change was so hard. And the intensity of the situations and the experiences that we had to adapt to and shift and this and that and all over the place, right? When I look back onto it, I think of like, man, that poor girl, she had to go through so much, and she was raising these two boys at the same time, and the guilty feeling that I felt it all. And then I find out that my boys loved their childhood. They loved that their childhood was different. They loved that their mother was different than all of their friends' mothers. There were just certain things about my experiences and my perspective that my children look at and they're like, oh my gosh, mom, like, you gave us a great childhood. Like I would take them to the movies on Fridays, every other Friday, I would share every other Friday with them and their father. And we would have date night, Friday night, date night. And so yeah, so there was never a dull moment for them. And so oftentimes I always thought that maybe I was a little too extreme or a little too much out there. It was just this different mom. And I often thought that that was a bad thing. And it just wasn't. It wasn't in their eyes. Like, and so that's, you know, if people can understand that our children have journeys themselves. And I've talked about this before so many times, but our children that we've been tasked with to guide through this lifetime, they have choices as well. And they have journeys that they're supposed to take as well. And they have part, you know, their soul has chosen to learn certain lessons as well. And so don't deprive them of that. Don't deprive them of learning how to adapt to change. Don't deprive them of learning how to make a situation, the perspective of it change, right? And, you know, when they told me those kinds of things, I stopped letting my past create suffering in my present. And that was a huge turning point for me, because I no longer looked at my past as negative. And you know what's really ironic about that is my entire negative past is one of the reasons why I have cancer today, is because all of that built out. You know, eugenics works very, very well. We should probably have a conversation about that someday. But the way that you feel about yourself is embedded in your body. And so, you know, maybe I can't completely reverse the damage that I've done to my insides, but I can choose a different perspective. And so through these changes with the eclipse that we're going through, you can make it really hard for yourself. You can make it very, very difficult, or you can consider it an adventure. And becoming homeless and having to ask people for money has been a really, really difficult situation that I've gone through recently. And I could have easily just fallen into myself, and almost did a couple of times, especially when the migraine started because of the stress and everything, and could have easily folded. And one day I just woke up and decided that I wasn't going to fold, and that I was going to let myself have a different perspective. And you know, it's normal during this time to be a little off. I know that there are a lot of people that are going through some pretty heavy depressive episodes. So if you are having problems, please do not hesitate to reach out. I know that I'm a stranger to most of you, but you can reach out to me. You can email me. We can, you know, talk about whatever's been going on, and see if we can't change that perspective a little bit. Nothing is ever going to be perfect in our lives. And I got to tell you that the overthinking of change is worse than when it actually happens, than when the change actually happens. We can overthink ourselves into a disastrous mess, right? But when the change actually happens, so much better than we thought it was going to be. Let's take a look at the chart for the eclipse. And I talk about this because we are going to have, here we go, Scorpio lunar eclipse is happening at 11:34 a.m. Mountain time on May 5th. So that's 1:34 p.m. Eastern time and 10:34 a.m. Pacific time. And the moon, just after the lunar eclipse happens, will be opposing Uranus. So change. There's a lot of Uranus themes that are going to be happening in May. We have a lot of stuff going on in May. We're going to kind of touch on some of those things while we're talking about this. So this eclipse is going to be opposing that Uranus in Taurus. And Uranus in Taurus, you know, Uranus is actually a pretty decent guy. I know that a lot of people think that he's a malefic, if you will, because of the way that he has those surprise changes. But quite honestly, Uranus is here for your evolution. Uranus is part of your spirituality. Uranus is the reason why we need to go within, because there's going to always be constant change on the outside. And if we're not evolving within ourselves, that constant change on the outside can be a detriment to us. Just like we talked about, can be a complete detriment to us. So we have this opposition to Uranus that's happening with the moon And we have a very loose conjunction to the sun with Mercury here, Mercury retrograde during this eclipse time. So wherever Taurus is in your chart, in this chart, it's in the 10th house. But everybody has a different, right? If you're a Scorpio rising, the eclipse is going to be happening in your first house. Taurus will be in your 7th house. For me, I'm a Libra rising, so I will have the eclipse happening in my 2nd house, new beginnings and a new home. Thank you very much. And Mercury retrograde and Uranus is in my 8th house. So the 8th house is about change and transformation. It's about other people's resources. So it's very on brand what's happening in my life right now. Like astrology just is speaking itself, speaking its heart out during that, in my life right now. Also during this time, we will have Venus square Neptune. We will also have Venus sextile Jupiter here. So we have Venus at the 27th degree, sextile Jupiter in Aries, and we have Venus at the 27th degree, sextile Neptune at the 26th, almost 27th degree, in Pisces over here. So relationships, money, self-worth, anything. And Venus in Gemini is more of an intellectual time. So you could be overthinking all of those things, the relationships that you want. What's really interesting about this eclipse is some people are going to meet. Some people are going to meet their person. That's the best way to say this. Not everybody's going to meet their person. The way that you meet your person is by being 100% who you are in that moment, showing up as your higher self, not showing up as anything else but your higher self. That has a lot of cryptic keys into it. When you show up as your higher self, you're not hiding any part of yourself. Normally, when we get into relationships, we want to put our best foot forward. I remember when I met Henry, I was so blunt with him. I was like, listen, I am not looking for an online fling. That is not a thing that's going to be happening. And he didn't try to convince me that it wasn't an online fling. He just showed up as he was. We showed up with each other, like totally raw and totally honest with each other. And there was no masking of anything happening. And I feel like that's what's going to be happening to a lot of people. Some people are going to be duped. This Venus square Neptune can be a very, very spiritual transit, but if you're sitting in a way where you let the outer world kind of control how you feel about yourself, that Venus square Neptune is probably going to make you feel a little bad about yourself, especially if like having a relationship makes you think that you'll feel better about who you are, or if you think like a certain job or making a certain amount of money is going to make you feel better about who you are. But overthinking it is going to be the biggest issue. Because Scorpios in itself, the Scorpio energy in itself, Scorpios are overthinkers all over the place. I'm sorry to throw you guys under the bus like that, but it's true. You guys are actually, like, this hot take, more perfectionists than Virgos are. Virgos want to be perfectionists, but we always fall short. Scorpios are very much perfectionists, and they really and they're perfectionists in their own way too. They really like to make up their own rules of that perfection, but not a bad thing. You guys are really you like to strive to be at your best, but you can be overthinkers. And so I feel like there's going to be a lot of overthinking that's going to be happening during this lunar eclipse, and I think a lot of it is going to have to do with the self-worth. For a lot of us, because this is going to be a new beginning, this is almost like a push ahead, like we're getting shoved into the right direction. A few other things that are very interesting before this even happens on Monday. So I'm doing this reading on Saturday the 29th, Saturday the 29th. On Monday the 1st, Pluto will station retrograde in Aquarius, and he's going to be in retrograde for 5 months. He will dip back into regress, let's use the proper word, he'll regress back into Capricorn for a little while. And then when he goes direct in October, he will move back towards Aquarius and be back in Aquarius in January. So the last 6 months of last year, and even the beginning, I would say probably right before like March. So the first 2 months of this year, are really going to be replaying. There's going to be a lot of coming, in these next 5 months, like being able to, wherever Pluto is transiting in your chart, like for me, Pluto is going back from the 5th house to the 4th house, but the 4th house has been a major theme for me because Pluto and even Saturn has been in the 4th and 5th house for the last 6 years. And it's been kind of annoying because finding stability through that is insanity. But so like, for example, Libra risings, Pluto is going to be regressing back to your 4th house. So really looking at that stability and really making sure that you understand that your safety and your stability starts from within. You do create your reality. 100% you create your reality. And the way that you create your reality is by the choices that you make in every new moment of your life. You don't create your reality just by changing your mind. You create your reality by changing your mind on what choices you're going to make. It's the action that creates the reality. It's not just the thought process. So we can talk about that spirituality stuff all we want, but the reason why a negative mind can create a negative reality is because of the choices that we make when we're in that negative state of mind, because of the actions that we take. So if change is happening and you're not able to control your nervous system, if you're not able to control your reaction or your response to whatever change is happening, you could make choices that can bring a lot of negativity into your life. But if you practice, especially during times like now, the eclipse season, when Pluto is all sorts of all over the place, when your shadow is at its loudest, if you're practicing how you want your response time to look, how you want your creative juices to not come out in chaos, but you want them to come out, even if it's a contained chaos, maybe a little bit, but through the changes that are happening in your life right now, and through the changes that you need to make, that you've probably been fighting against with yourself and other people for a long time, if you can make those changes and have a calm response to it and allow yourself to just look at things and be like, this is the way that it is, so now we got to do it. And that's hard to do when you're in the middle of the chaos and you're in the middle of the negativity and things are really, really rough and really, really hard that are happening. It's hard to bring yourself back. And so that's why it's, practice. A lot of that for me had to do with releasing anger that I held. I held a lot of anger in my body, and it would come out as projections when I was triggered by the change of life. So and a lot of us are holding anger in our body. So really like looking at your emotions and giving them names. And this is that perfect time to practice all of that, especially with Venus sextile Jupiter. Venus sextile Jupiter, absolutely. Venus sextile Jupiter could bring somebody into your life. But more than anything, this is about expanding your vision on what worthiness, how you want to feel worthy for yourself. And recognizing that the more worthy you feel about yourself, the more blessings show up in your life, no matter what that looks like. People could kind of be in delusional states of mind during this eclipse, during this lunar eclipse. We also have Mercury will be going direct on May 14th, just a couple more dates to throw at you. And we'll have Jupiter in Taurus on May 16th. Once Jupiter hits Taurus, and we'll talk about this a little bit for the new moon in Taurus that's happening on May 19th. So we'll talk about that when we get there a little bit more. But once Jupiter moves into Taurus, ingresses Taurus, immediately will square Pluto. And that is going to bring a lot of people wanting to get ahead, people stepping on other people to get ahead. That's going to be in the massive collective, right? In the worldwide collective. There's going to be a lot of ego mania probably happening with a lot of people. So again, another time to really rein yourself in, really make sure that you are grounded. From the 16th to the 20th, you're going to have this square between the two, in May. And then we have Mars will be in Leo. So about May 20th, for a few days, we will have this T-square that's happening. We could probably bump that. Let me show you this real quick, you guys. Oh, wait, no. Let's do current transits and just pop to May 20th so I can show you this insanity. People, this can be a great push to push you ahead, to get you moving forward into your future, to allow you to manifest some really big things, to help change the course of your life. If you want change, now is the time for you to change. But it's also going to bring out everybody's egos. See this opposition from Mars to Pluto? Whew. That's always a tough one. It always gets really intense and fiery when Mars is opposite Pluto. So we have this really interesting T-square happening. And I think that I don't really talk about what goes on in the media. Like, I don't talk about mundane aspects of what's going on in the world when it comes to these astrology things. I don't really necessarily like talking about that because I think a lot of what is happening in the world right now is teaching us to go further inward and to not it's a disaster. If you turn on the news or you turn on anything, literally the people who are supposed to be in power sound ridiculous. They look ridiculous. It's like a cartoon version of reality. And it's hard. It's really hard to watch. And I swear, if there's another old white man in office, I just cannot. I can't. Just can't. Anyway, it's time for the baby boomers to retire. Y'all are in your 80s. Let it go, please. Okay. Give Gen X a chance. Like, come on. That's the whole reason why y'all had us. You were telling us as children that we had to be the ones that save the world. Remember all those commercials? Okay, so we have and this is what I mean. Like, there's some kind of power struggle that's going to be happening. And I feel like there's going to be a political power struggle that's also happening. I think that there are alliances that are probably going to break up during this time politically. I think a lot is going to be happening on the political stage. Now, in our normal everyday lives, who gives a shit about the politics, right? What's happening on the ground level, that's up to us. And so really pay attention to your driving in the second half of May. Slow down. Really pay attention to not arguing with people. If you guys argue with people, or if I argue with anybody, like, it's going to be an argument. It's going to be a blow up. It's going to be an explosion. There are a lot of relationships that are not going to last through the second half of May, simply because of the power struggles that can happen in relationships. I'm not laughing about that. I just can already see, if it is a solid relationship, if it's a solid partnership, then, that it may be fine. You guys may be fine. You may have a little bumps in the road, or you may need to have a conversation or something, but things are going to be relatively okay. But if it's already fallen apart, there's no way that you're going to be able to save it. Okay. That's the second half of May. So starting May 20th on, or even May 16th on, focusing on your tasks at hand, focus on your path. What is it that you need to do in your life? How are you bringing yourself ahead? Don't step on other people's toes, and remember to help other people along the way. Jupiter, this is Jupiter in Taurus and Pluto in Aquarius is very humanitarian efforts when they collide, okay? So we got to think about other people too. All right. let's look at our surrender cards. We have the power of surrender cards here. Normally I have the outside of it, but I didn't bring that with me. So, okay. Surrender to rest and sleep. Wow. To prevent burnout, slow down. Honor your need for quiet time and peaceful sleep to rejuvenate your mind, body, and spirit. So, oh wow, that's really glaring. Sorry. It's the lighting here. I gotta fix on it a little bit. But surrender to rest and sleep. So that's what the eclipse is doing for a lot of us, is having us surrender to resting. Like, you don't always have to go, go, go. I tell a lot of people that, you know, most of the time, you know, when we're resting, things will get accomplished even better after that rest. So, oh, I love this. We have the sun. Hold on 1 second for me. I'm gonna fix this lighting real quick. I don't know how well that did, but here we go. So we have the sun still glaring a little bit. We have the 3 of Wands, and we have the Wheel of Fortune. So this lunar eclipse is going to bring some clarity and change to the things that have been plaguing you. A lot of us, this screams, a lot of us need to have that rest and need to have that sleep so that we can see the change happening, so we can look at the perspective in a different way. Because if we look at this in a way where it's a struggle, it's a hurdle for us to go through, instead of a blessing that things are changing and recreating itself, then it's going to be it won't be such a fun adventure. It won't be a fun experience or a fun adventure. Here we go. Let's see what this sun is. 3 of Swords, love that. And the 7 of Wands. Okay. So we have the Queen of Swords with the 4 of Pentacles on the sun. You have to hold on to your truth. For some of us, we need to be reminded and be very strict with ourselves that we need to save money. There's this immediate need to hold on to money. So for some of us, we really need to change that. You know, it's kind of clarity. Don't be too restrictive with yourself, though, is what I'm getting. Like, I feel like the sun is showing you that, yes, in one way you need to be a little bit more stabilized, but in other ways you might be restricting yourself if you're being too stable. We have the Star with the 3 of Swords. Whatever it was that broke your heart, it had to happen in order for us to grow, in order for us to move towards our purpose. The Star is very much about our purpose. I forgot to tell you guys in the beginning of this, and for some reason my brain keeps on telling me, and I can't keep reading until I say this out loud, but I do have my 6-month readings available early. I've got a pre-sale for my 6-month readings, July to December. I'm doing that because we are starting from scratch with this new place that we're moving into. We need furniture and pots and pans and dishes and all of the essentials. We need everything. So I'm putting out my reading, my 6-month reading early, so everybody can get a spot. I usually sell out of those, and I've already had 3 people get in for May. So May is already going pretty fast, and so that I don't overextend my energy, I've got my time slots kind of, you know, scheduled out a little bit. So if you want to get in for that 6-month reading, it's available now, but it, you know, the reading starts in July. So There we go. Okay, now I can think again. Wow. So, whatever the heartbreak was, whatever the thing that really just tore you to pieces, it brought some balance into, into your life also. And you're probably starting to see that a little bit more now. And then we have the Seven of Wands with the Wheel of Fortune. With everything changing in the way that it is right now, the best thing that you can do for yourself is to make sure that you have proper boundaries up. Boundaries are not so you can keep people out. Boundaries can show you the people that you have to absolutely keep out of your life, but that's not the purpose of them. Boundaries can absolutely show you who are meant to be in your life. Boundaries are to say, I trust you. I trust you with these parts of my existence, right? So, through these changes, really make sure, and you don't have to struggle through the shift. That Wheel of Fortune is saying something pretty amazing is coming to you. And I feel like if you have some discipline with the approach, that Queen of Swords energy with this Four of Pentacles on the Sun, I feel like if you have a little bit of discipline with your approach, then everything will be made clear to you. There's like so much more that could be made clear at this time for you. And I think a lot of that is going to happen while you rejuvenate, rest and sleep, surrender to rest and sleep, and allow yourself to rejuvenate. Okay. I've done a lot of talking today through this video. So I appreciate everybody that hung out with me. All of my other readings are also available. If you'd like to get a 30-minute tarot reading, I do have my soul's journey reading. Also, I haven't talked about that in a while. That soul's journey reading, it is really helpful. Like if you're stuck right now and you're not exactly sure what direction you should be going in, or, this one can really help you understand where your soul is and what your soul is kind of learning in these moments. So that's a really good one as well. And of course, I have my mindful coaching. So, if you're just kind of having a hard time figuring out how to exist in life right now, the mindful coaching sessions are always pretty amazing too. So I love you guys. Thanks for being really patient with me through April. And I'm going to get started on some May readings for you. Bye.